Hello, I'm Rebecca again, and I hope that you have been well. Today, we are going to move on to Handout 2 of Approximation and Estimation. I hope that you have kind of understood what we have gone through in Handout 1, so you're all ready for Handout 2. Before we get started, let's have a cup of water, hydrate ourselves, and let's get started. Okay, so approximation and estimation. Are we ready? Handout 2. First question is taken from NBSS, Northbrooks Secondary School, 2022 EOY, Paper 2, Question 1. So in this question, they say to calculate this whole entire string of numbers and write down the first six digits shown on your calculator. So for questions like that, you will realize that it is 1 mark. 1 mark means that you do not need to show intermediate steps. You do not need to break down your working. Whatever that you see in the question over here is what you will be pressing in the calculator. Do not change the form of what you see here in the calculator. Okay, so you might wonder, oh, okay, so if I'm supposed to do that, then how do I press, into my calculator? Okay, you might want to start off by pressing onto the square root sign. Okay, so you press the square root sign and it will appear first, right? Then now within the square root sign, you realize that there is a fraction. Do not start by pressing the numerator of the fraction. Set the fraction within the square root sign first. Okay, so first step, press on the square root sign. Next step, press the fraction icon. Okay, and you will see the fraction bar appearing. Now, when you have done so, then let's input all the numbers that you see in the numerator into the top of the fraction bar. Be careful not to have any transfer error. Okay, and there, hit the equal button, and we will be writing down the first six digits on the calculator. Now, first six digits means that whether it is a zero or a non-zero digit, as long as it's the first six numbers, put it down. Okay, so what I see will be 0.01775. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 digits. So this will be the answer. Now, next, round off your answer in part A. To part A, correct to two significant figures, 0.01775. Now we round it off. Let's look at the second significant figure, which we have to start counting from the first non-zero digit. So these are zeros, we don't count. This will be the first non-zero digit. This is the first significant figure. So therefore, second significant figure will be 7. The first 7 in the number, in the value. So will we need to add a 1 to the 7? Yes, because the number next to it on its right is 5 or more. So we plus a 1 over, our answer will be 0.018. Okay, and we write down in brackets 2s5. Okay. Now, before I move on to the next question, I would just like to raise a point. This is a tip. You may see that, oh, this question is so easy to score, right? Indeed, it is. In fact, it is a giveaway question. But because it's a giveaway question, you also need to take note that if your answer for part A is incorrect, that leads to a wrong answer in part B. Okay, so please be careful to write down the correct answer to part A. Check through your working as you press, these values into the calculator over here in part A. Double check that you have pressed it correctly and make sure that you have written down the answer. Not every marking scheme will say, oh, let's do an error carry forward. If part A is wrong, let's just take whatever value you have written here. And if you have rounded it off correctly, let's just award you the mark. We cannot be sure on that. And sometimes exceptions to all these ECFs or error carry forward, it really depends from school to school what the agreement amongst the teachers is like. Okay, so let's not assume that, oh, there will always be this concession. Let's aim to always be better and accurate. Now we move on to the next question, also taken from NBSS 2022 EOY, paper 2, question 2. And in this question, they say, by rounding each number correct to 1 SF, estimate. Question is very clear. For each and every number that we see, we need to round it off. Okay, so I am going to use the approximate sign. So 5.04 to 1SF, I need to focus on the first non-zero digit. So it will remain as 5 because the digit next to it is 0. 19.86, I focus on the 1. I round it off to 2 because the following digit is 9. So 5 multiplied by 20 out of denominator 4.97, I round it off to 5 because the digit next to 4 is 9 and we round it up. So from here, work it out. Equal sign, 5 times 20, I will get 100 out of 5. So that gives me 20. Okay, now next part. Without using a calculator, estimate. You realize that though you are given the liberty of using calculator for both papers, this question says without using a calculator. Are they being silly by writing this down? Absolutely not. By mentioning the phrase without using a calculator, it means you need to show all your method to get to the answer, and you need to show how you can do it without the use of any calculator. That means mental calculation can also work the answer out. So how is that possible? Well, in order to estimate, we need to look into each of the values here within the square root. There are 3 square roots. Wow. Okay, so in order to estimate the value of the square roots, let me copy down the question first. We need to ensure that each of these values within the square root sign are square numbers. Then we can square root it without using a calculator. The first square root sign says 50.4, and what is the closest square number to it? Well, 49. 7 times 7, 49. 8 times 8, 64, but 64 is way off from 50 as opposed to 49 to up to 50. Okay, so we will use 49. 101.5, you might have guessed it. The closest square number will be 100. That will be 10 times 10. 4.1, closest square number, 4. So from here, we can see that within each of the square numbers, okay, under the square root sign, we can easily square root. Hence, our answer will be 35. Did we use a calculator? Well, if you would like to work out 7 times 10 out of 2 using a calculator, go ahead. But what the question really requires of you is to get the answer 35 from these values here. How are you going to appropriate these numbers in order to square root them without the use of a calculator? That's what the question is driving at. Now let's move on. Third question, OSS 2022 EOY, paper 2, question 4. Again, without using a calculator. Okay, estimate the value of the expression by rounding off each number in the expression to 1SF. So let's copy down the question. And estimate each number, round off to 1SF. I will end up with a 10 multiplied by 5 out of 5. Okay. So I will end up with 50 out of 5, which gives us 10. I believe we have done similar questions in Handout 1 already. So I will not be going through the steps to explain how to obtain the one significant figure. Let's move on to the next part. Using a calculator, work out the value. Leave your answer to 2 decimal places. Question says use a calculator, meaning no intermediate steps required. Let's copy down the question. Okay, and I will be giving my answer to a few more decimal places than 2. Okay, I use the approximate sign, and from there, I'm going to leave my answer to 2 dp. So let me underline the second dp first, and then I will decide whether the 1 stays at 1 or I need to round it up to 2. So looking at the digit next to it, I see a 4. I do not round it up. So answer will be 1.41, correct to 2 dp. Next question. USS Queensway Secondary School, 2022 EOY, paper 1, question 3A. One of the top 10 endangered species is the ancient Asian elephant. It is estimated that there are 30,000 Asian elephants left in the world, rounded off to 2 SF. Write down the minimum and maximum number of Asian elephants that could be left in the wild. So again, let's draw a number line. And I am going to place 30,000, the rounded value, in the middle of the number line. And another 2 markings, one to demarcate the minimum number and one to demarcate the maximum number. So in order to find the minimum number, rounded off to 2SF, okay, my 30,000, when I want to look at the minimum number, before 30,000, it would be 29,000 and something, right? Okay, now these 3 values here, these 3 digits here, will have to be small enough such that it's right enough, just enough to round it to 30,000. So what really matters is that this number here, this digit, has to be the smallest possible number that can round it up. So to round a number up is between 5 and 9. Smallest digit, 5. So this has to be 5. And the last 2 digits, the smallest possible digits that you can ever think of, 0, 0. So this is the minimum number. For maximum number, it has to definitely cross the 30,000 mark. So I'm going to put a 3 here, okay? Now, if I were to look at, again, the hundreds place, this number must be so small such that it will not be big enough to round it up to a 31,000. Okay, so this will still be a zero, right? Well, between 0 and 4, these are the numbers that will not make it big enough to round it up. The greatest possible number will be 4. Anywhere between 5 and 9, we'll have to round it up to 31,000 already, and we don't want that. So the last two digits, the greatest possible that we can ever think of, the digits will be 9 and 9. Okay, so from here, minimum number 29,500, maximum number 30,499. Finally, QSS 2022 EOY Paper 2 Question 1A says that by rounding each number to 2SF, estimate the value of. So again, you realize this question is kind of repetitive throughout a few papers. Just be careful and not assume. You might want to underline keywords. Okay, each number to SF, estimate. So let's copy down the question. I am going to use the approximate sign because the whatever that I have estimated is not equals to whatever that the question gives, right? So I need to be careful about the sign that I use. It's not an equality sign. So meaning to say we do not abuse the equal sign. Okay, so let's estimate by rounding each number to SF. So looking at the second significant figure, which is the 1 in the ones place, I do not round it up because the following digit on the right is 1. So 21. I add 2. 15.98 to round it. My second significant figure is 5. I will have to round it up to 6 because the digit on its right is 9. So square root 16. 0.499. Second SF will be 9 in the hundredths place. I have to round it up because the digit on its right is 9. So it will be 0.50 multiplied by now 10.3. My second significant figure is 0, but I do not round it up because the number on its right, the digit on its right is 3. So times 10. So from here, 21 plus 4 out of 0.5 times 10. Okay. We could make use of the calculator if we need to. If you are able to calculate mentally, you would realize that 0.5 is half. Half of 10 is actually 5. Finally, solution 5. Before I end this session, I would just like to raise one thing, okay, because you know that for students who are under me, you will also be aware that whatever questions that I put online, whatever questions that I do share and present, I work out the solutions beforehand, check in with the solutions that were given to ensure that I'm on the right track and to also make sure that whatever that is given in the solutions is correct. Okay, because sometimes errors do occur. And one of the careless mistakes that I made while I was doing this question was this. Okay, I'm going to point it out. I'm going to use red. And then later I'm going to erase it because that's actually not part of the question. I made a mistake. Yeah. Now, no matter how honest, how innocent a mistake is, it is still a mistake. And I think it would value add to your learning if I bring it up so that you are more aware of the potential mistakes that you could make, just like how I did. Okay, so what happened was that in writing down the rounded value to each of each number to two significant figures, in haste, instead of an addition sign. I actually changed it into a multiplication sign. Can you imagine the effect of the multiplication sign on each and every step? Isn't it costly? Now, if you were to look at the marks allocation, it says 2 marks for this. Hey, 2 marks is something that we need to really ensure we get, because this is a topic not as challenging as most of the other topics in secondary one. And to lose 2 marks because of a transfer error, I think it is something that I really could not come to terms with. I felt that I could have done better than that. So my essence of saying this is that, in sometimes the haste of writing down the answer because we have not enough time, because we are sleepy, or something else like that, just be careful to work out uh, conscientiously. Do check, because sometimes when we gloss through our solutions, we may still think it's correct. And until we take a really hard look, we realize, multiplication sign ought to be addition sign. Okay, or sometimes subtraction sign ought to be division sign because we forget the dots. Okay, so well, this is just something for you to take away. That is not part of the solution, but I would really like you to be aware of. Okay, and really, sometimes we are so quick to lump all the mistakes as careless mistakes. But what really is a careless mistake? Do you recognize that actually mistakes can be grouped into different forms of mistakes? One form is transfer error, right? So can we spot other forms of careless mistakes? So as we go into the other handouts, I will also point out to you some of the mistakes that I have made along the way, how I learned from it, and I also hope that you will learn from it. All right, I'll see you in the next handout. See you in the next learning. So take care. Goodbye.